Hi, I'm Gary Karp, and welcome to this brief overview of my upcoming Modern Disability webinars, my two core programs, the new paradigm of modern disability and the three principles of disability etiquette. Really excited about this work, and I hope you'll consider joining me for these programs. First of all, the new paradigm of modern disability is the story of an historic transformation, a radical change that has happened around us in society, which is an equally radical impact on the workplace. The focus of these programs is bringing these awarenesses into workplace culture for some very important reasons. We're having the conversation because so many things have changed about the disability experience. We're going to look at the specific transformations that have happened around us. It's such an important business issue because these people are available to work on a scale never possible before, and because there's more money in their pocket, so their customers, their clients, their consumers. So it's so important for business to get its head properly around this present view of modern disability, and it affects every one of us as individuals. This can happen to anybody at any time or to somebody that you care about. So, what is going to be most important? I would say it's that everybody is entitled to their potential, to the opportunity to reach for what is possible, and more is possible now with a whole array of disabilities than ever before. But we have to start with who are people with disabilities. We're going to take a look at who this population really is and what our belief systems are based on. For many of us, it goes back to images like this of the poster child used for polio fundraising. These kinds of notions are still deeply ingrained in the way society thinks of disability as a horrible, tragic thing, which really misses the reality of who these people are. People with mobility, physical, sensory, cognitive, or a whole list of other disabilities. I'll spend a little time helping you understand who the population really is. And it's immense. It's incredible how many people actually fall under the category of some characteristic that might define them as a person with a disability. But when it comes down to it, their disability is not what defines them. They are people, real, whole people who just want the same things that everybody else wants. And what they want is to be able to work. And a very, very large number of people with disabilities, of this exploding emergent class of people, are vastly underutilized. What a loss for our workplace culture. So things have changed. Observable, clear things have changed in the experience of having a disability. They're more mobile than ever before. I am sitting in a wheelchair which is way different than the one that I was using after my spinal cord injury 38 years ago. And people live in a more accessible world, and we've all seen this. The curb cuts, the ramps, the elevators, the accessible buses, hotel rooms, and the accessible schools and universities. So people with disabilities are more educated, and so many more of them now are targeted toward having a career. People with disabilities are healthier thanks to medical advances, rehabilitation, and just the fact of being able to be more active. That alone is much better for anybody. And we live in an information society that is less about physical labor and much more about what is in somebody's brain and their creativity and their ability to problem solve and to use modern technologies. And there is assistive technology design that allows almost anybody to make use of workplace technologies. And people with disabilities have gained from advocacy successes that protect their civil rights. It's not a consolation prize, it's not doing them any favors. It simply means that people with disabilities have a right to be protected from discrimination based on the fact of having a disability. And it's equally true that the employer has the right to protections too, such as you shouldn't have to hire anybody who's not qualified for the job. And you don't. No law says that you have to do that. In the New Paradigm webinar, we're going to take a look at some of the prevailing stereotypes that inform our notion of disability that really don't fit the actual experiences of them. We're going to talk about the angry cripple. We're going to talk about the extremes of the tragic and the heroic view of disability. And then we're going to look at how the new paradigm of modern disability actually looks in the workplace. For instance, everybody will think of disability as something to which one adapts, rather than something that necessarily means that somebody can't work. And that's how you'll be able to embrace candidates for a job and keep existing employees who acquired disability. And we'll think very differently about disability, getting away from the notion of hire the handicapped, as if it's a charitable thing we're supposed to do, and we're supposed to make a sacrifice, and instead understand that these are real people who are truly qualified and able to perform, and that employers have every right to hold them to the same standards as everybody else. So that is the new paradigm of modern disability. The next core webinar that I present is the 3 principles of disability etiquette, because in order to achieve all that stuff, the first step is actually to help everybody relax and understand how we can interact with people with disabilities in ways that are productive. And it's not a sensitivity training. That's one of the core points. You don't have to be on eggshells. You don't have to worry so much about whether you're doing or you're saying the right thing. It's not as big a deal as you think, and there's not a long list of rules to memorize. In fact, these very simple principles are going to cover most of the situations, most of the encounters that you'll have with people with disabilities. So here they are really quickly. First, they're people. They don't primarily identify themselves by their disability. It's just a component of what makes them up. Many of them will say that there's really kind of no difference between me and my disability. It's just so a part of who I am. But to see them primarily in terms of their disability is going to miss the whole of who they are. Second principle is that they treasure their independence. Doing for themselves really matters. Doesn't that matter to all of us? So when we're inclined to offer help, however well-meaning, we actually might be bumping into something that somebody really prefers to do for themselves, or better yet, when we see the third principle, that they are fully capable of doing themselves. They are experts at living with their disabilities. It often looks like something is going to be difficult, or we don't imagine how somebody's going to do something, but they use an array of strategies and tools and techniques that allow them to function in ways that aren't necessarily apparent to everybody else. I'll give specific examples of the 3 principles, and I'll talk about workplace traps. What happens in the workplace when you fail to operate on these 3 principles of etiquette? So there it is, a really screaming quick overview of my 2 modern disability webinars, the new paradigm of modern disability and the 3 principles of disability etiquette. Go to my website at moderndisability.com, where you can get even more information about this, where you can see dates for upcoming programs, and where you can register. I really hope that you'll join me for these really excellent, insightful programs. Thanks so much. I'm Gary Karp.